6:28 p.m. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Director Brenworth?
Here.
Director Goodell?
Here.
Director Menard?
Here.
Director Proctor?
Here.
Director Barker?
Here.
Director Valdez?
Here.
Director Garcia?
Here.
Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll move on to consider approval of the agenda. In the case of emergency, items may be added to the agenda by a majority vote of the Board of Directors. An emergency is defined as a work stoppage, a crippling disaster, or other activity that severely imperils public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of sequential order as a priority is determined by the Board of Directors. The Board may take action on any item appearing on the agenda. Do we have a motion for any adjustments to the agenda? I have a motion by Bitzel and a second by Berger. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to public comments. At this time, the board will hear comments on any agenda item. If any person wishes to be heard, then he or she shall stand, address the board, identify themselves, and state the subject for the comment. Time limit for each speaker is 3 minutes total. Not 3 minutes per item, but rather 3 minutes per speaker for all items on the agenda, except with respect to the public hearing below. A total of 15 minutes shall be allocated for each item for all members of the public. The board may find it necessary to limit the total time allowable for all public comments on items not appearing on the agenda at any one meeting to 1 hour. Do we have anybody here for public comments tonight? Please step up to the podium.
Good evening, Chairwoman and board members and public. Jesus Solano, 426 Rosemont, Calexico. I'm here as a concerned citizen of Calexico. This is regarding the Heffernan Board. Okay. I am requesting under the provision of the Cortez Knox Harrisburg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000, California, Government Code 5600. I request that the LAFCO reopen its intention of Heffernan Board with the intention to dissolve Heffernan Board within the next 60 days, but prior, if it's possible. Okay. The reckless spending of no improvement of the health care of this of the residents of the districts must be stopped. Back in 2015, Heffernan purchased a property at 400 Mary Street. Okay, that development has not been completed. Also, by LAFCO, it was recommended that the board submit an annual report for the community. You can't find it at the website or under LAFCO website either. Okay, so as of October 23, nothing has happened. And I'm requesting to dissolve the board sooner than the date that we have planned up right now. It's a decision that it must be go on, that it must be done. So why procrastinate on something that you need to take care of? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Please step up.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the board of the Imperial Valley Healthcare District. I applaud you for taking the positions you have, because in my opinion, this is more important to Imperial County than any other thing going on, including Lake County. This is immediate. It needs to be taken care of now. You have been saddled to do in such a short time. You have so much to do. And the health care of Imperial County depends on the decisions you make. And I, applaud you and ask that you reach out for any help you need, because there isn't anybody in Imperial County that knows as much as you're supposed to know to do what you have to do. But my main goal tonight is just to mention a couple things. One, you have on your agenda to approve an appraisal of the El Centro Healthcare Facility for rental purposes. I see absolutely no need for something like that. It will only advantage UCSD if you fail and they come in and want to take over.
What's this?
Okay, hang on, I gotta go. Ron's talking. See if I can hear it. That's what you need.
Ms. Rubin, can you mute your mic, please?
Sorry.
It's
there.
Got your fan club.
Anyway, if the truth ever comes out, El Centro Community Hospital was a profitable organization before UCSD got involved. And it's consistently gone down since 2015, and they've lost so far this year, taking out a few big payments that came from the government that were for private previous years. They've lost over $8 million. What is UCSD doing for that hospital? They have done nothing to help, only take, whether it's stealing customers, patients, or whether it's the monies that they get paid for managing the hospital. And the biggest concern I have is that's one of the things that you have to take on in your evaluation of the hospital and all the other problems there are. So I would ask that you remember you have a fiduciary responsibility to the residents of Imperial County, and that you should work on due diligence, get all the help you need, because there isn't, any one of us in the Imperial Valley that could make that analysis. So you need to ask all the questions before you sign any agreements to take on the debt for El Centro.
Sir, if you could wrap it up real quick.
Okay.
And please, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, sir, so for the minutes.
Ron Rubin.
Thank you.
I'm a citizen of Raleigh, and lifetime. I grew up in Holcomb. So I've got one other thing. You have VMG, use them to help merge everything together. That's their main business. Use them as one of your consultants to move things and analyze how things will go. They know a lot more about hospitals than most other companies.
Thank you so much for your public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
Hey, Mr. Rubin. Good evening, Honorable Board. Joe Rebler, Brawley resident. I continue to remain optimistic about the creation of Valley One Healthcare District. I think it is long overdue. I speak from direct experience. I think our hospitals have needed a hard reset. I think that people deserve that. At the same time, there is somewhat of a growing pessimism just regarding the upcoming deadlines rapidly approaching, and also a fault as well, just feeling elderly. I just felt that getting this initiative, there was a lot of outreach and engagement in informing the community, and over the last few months, it's kind of waned. And apart from the community itself, as an elected official, I felt that the average citizen must feel the same way, if not even more. And I say this now, and then I say this because now you have a decision tonight to dissolve the Pioneer Memorial Healthcare District, and just what does that mean? You know, for my constituents as a Brawley elected, Brawley City Council member, what does that mean for the people that elected me to represent them? Perhaps it means nothing. Perhaps it means closure. Perhaps, who knows? I know, but these questions I'm sure can circulate, and I think I don't want to just come and say do better, but in regards to outreach engagement, but also a proposition, I guess. And I spoke with our mayor and perhaps a workshop, or even you're the Imperial Valley Healthcare District, holding these meetings beyond the city of El Centro in the districts that you represent. I know I talked with our mayor about allowing our facilities to be used for perhaps a workshop. I know just, I guess from experience, sometimes to address those that have the biggest concerns, fears, or even critiques is to face them with information, knowledge, and understanding and respect. And so I guess I ask for that. Just let's get that energy we had at the beginning of this, when we want to inform the benefits of a healthcare district, of Valley-wide healthcare district, and what this really means. Like I said, people deserve better healthcare as well as more information on what you all are doing and the future of healthcare in Imperial Valley. So that concludes my comment.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Salsa, and I'm the Director of Berkshire Helpline Crisis Center here in El Centro. And I wasn't really going to speak, but I really didn't appreciate the attitude of hurrying up and locking the Heffernan Memorial down. I understand, and I think all of us understand that there is a time set for all of this. And first of all, I want to commend all of you, each and every one of you, for being here. And I know a lot of you guys, and you're very professional, and I know it's going to work for the best of the community. But what I do want you to tell you that I myself and my agency are very proud because we got to work with Heffernan Memorial. We were able to, through our agency, work with 1,500 families. Work with the mothers and the fathers, you know, and it was a joy. And that's all I wanted to say, just what came out of my heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments, please?
I'm going to want to speak right now and then on the item C. My name is Maritza Hurtado, and I'm a businesswoman in the city of Calexico. And I'm also the person who ran as the team leader for the Calexico recall. Those of you that don't know that are present here, Calexico just went through a recall of 2 council members in our city. Our recall was highly successful and very well invigorating towards our community. We have not come to these meetings because my team members, a few of them are here, because we were very involved in the recall, and we didn't want to lose any focus because these items here are so confusing and it keeps changing every day. But just like the previous speaker, not Ms. Salsa, but the other gentleman, the question for Calexico is the same. What does that mean for Calexico? What does that mean for Calexico, a city who does not have an operating hospital? I was born there in, I don't want to say what year, but great memories of different visits there, but we don't have that anymore. But Brawley and El Centro does. So what does this merger mean to the citizens of Calexico? The investors who believed in taxing us for the last 25 plus years, what was the delivery supposed to be? In the last few years, as the previous speaker said, we were very concerned because the investments that we should have had with our monies have been squandered. We have looked at a clinic which has not been able to be operational probably since COVID. We lost all the programs during COVID. None of our citizens are being served at this time. So we believe that the dissolution of Heffernan is a priority at this time. We do believe that it should be dissolved sooner than later and stop the bleeding. Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
Hi, my name is Paloma, Calexico resident. And this is, first of all, thank you for the time. And dear Ivy Board of Trustees, the Board of Trustees of the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District opposes the adoption of the IVH Resolution number 2024-03 recommending the Imperial County Hospital that Heffernan Memorial be dissolved on October 1st. IVH representatives have not discussed in good faith the proposed date for dissolving Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District with any authorized representative of the board. As stated by the resolution number 2024-03. Also, as a good faith discussion regarding the dissolution date and providing of healthcare services by Heffernan have never been held, an invitation has been made by our board, and IVHD has opposed. Also, Heffernan taxpayers are incurring heavy expenses, especially on legal expenses, without ECRMC and pioneers providing their share of expenses. That's all.
Thank you. Do you have any other public comments?
My name is Raul Dureño, and I'm a resident of Calexico, California. And I'm here, well, first of all, I'm a big supporter of having a better services, healthcare services for the Imperial Valley, and I'm a big supporter of this project. But today I'm here to oppose the dissolution of the Heffernan District, because we don't know, as today, if the ECRMC is gonna sell their hospitals to the IVHD, or we don't know the legal outcome from pioneers. So at this moment, dissolving Heffernan, I don't think is a very good thing to do, because we don't know the outcomes of the two things that I just made. I just said. Sorry.
Do we have any other public comments?
Hello, my name is Eduardo Rivera, and I'm with Heffernan. And I'm here to urge you not to adopt a resolution that you have before you on your agenda today. Your resolution says that you negotiated or you had good faith discussions with Heffernan. All members of the Heffernan board did not and have not had good faith discussions with anyone from your board. So your resolution, which is based on good faith consultations concerning the dissolution date, concerning the impact of any services that Heffernan is providing to the district, that hasn't happened. And Heffernan feels that your resolution is based on false information and it should be denied. And it should be tabled, and you should appoint 1, 2, or 3 members of your board to have a discussion with Heffernan. Heffernan has been very supportive of IVHD. And then to reach this point and have the dissolution date set unilaterally by someone representing IVHD just doesn't seem correct. So you do what you need to do. I mean, you're a legally formed board, and so is Heffernan. The difference is Heffernan is elected, you're appointed. And all we ask you is in good faith, sit down with Heffernan. And we could try to resolve these 2 issues that your resolution contains, that which we feel are not correct. Thank you.
I'm happy to respond at the board's discretion right now or during the resolution item, but I do have a few comments in response. Do you want me to talk now, or do you want me to wait and hold it to the resolution?
You can talk now.
At the last board meeting, the board president for Heffernan came before this board, which is reflected in the minutes, and our board president expressly asked about the Heffernan dissolution date, and this board ended up ultimately directing me to have a discussion with Heffernan representatives in good faith regarding a proposed dissolution date. thereafter, I had a Zoom with you, Mr. Rivera, and with Heffernan's CEO, Mr. Buchanan, about the proposed dissolution date. I said October 1 or November 1, which is the date reflected on the proposed resolution. And no one told me, why are you talking about this with me? You need to be talking about this with our entire board. I assumed, perhaps incorrectly, that I was speaking with authorized representatives from Heffernan, because I was speaking with their general counsel and their CEO. So we did have good faith discussions, at least discussions that I believed were in good faith, because no one ever said, this date doesn't work for us. In fact, we extended a tremendous amount of courtesy, and this board did too, at the last board meeting, in discussing openly with Senora Bernal, what date do you think is appropriate? We want to choose a date in good faith that doesn't undermine the important work Heffernan has been doing for their urgent care. She asked for the ribbon cutting ceremony to be respected, which is one of the dates, which is one of the reasons why our negotiating committee, which is our ad hoc committee duly appointed by this board, discussed and selected one of the proposed October 1 date. There's a lot of other reasons we selected October 1, which we can talk about when we get to that item. But I also just want to point out that we talked to Heffernan's general counsel and CEO as a courtesy, but nothing in AB 918 requires us to talk in good faith with Heffernan prior to selecting a dissolution date. And if this board feels that it's an inaccurate representation to have that paragraph in the resolution, you'll note that paragraph is not in the Pioneers resolution, because we didn't propose, I mean, they're suing IVHD, it's pretty clear what their position is, so we didn't have discussions with Pioneers about their proposed dissolution date. But we tried to do that with Heffernan, but we can very easily strike that paragraph from the resolution, and the resolution will continue to be binding and just fines under the provisions of AB 918. So that's just something for you to consider. I'm not sure what happened between now and between our Zoom and now, but we are fine to move forward with the resolution when that item becomes before the board, and we can also just strike that item from the resolution if this board so decides.
Let's have the further discussion about the resolution when the item actually comes up.
Yes, except one item I really need to
No,
respond to
sir,
council.
we're going to wait till the resolution comes. Thank
The
you.
information that she consulted with me via Zoom is incorrect.
Sir.
There was an attempt to
Sir,
communicate.
I'm asking you nicely to please, when we get to this item, this is still public comment. Please be respectful.
That's fine.
Thank
All I'm
you.
telling you is that information is incorrect.
Sir, please be respectful. Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
Good evening, board members. I'm speaking to you regarding resolution 2024.
Can we talk about when that item comes up?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. No, if anybody has public comments on specific items, I'm just going to ask you when I'll open up for public comment during that time. Do we have any other public comments of items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7, consent calendar. Any member of the board, staff, or public may request that items for the consent calendar be removed for discussion. Items so removed shall be acted upon separately, immediately following approval of items remaining on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Second.
I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Valdez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to item 8, board member comments, reports on meeting and events attended by directors. Do we have any board member comments?
I want to thank the gentleman for redoing the maps. I did have an opportunity to speak to the Oakville City Council, and they pulled up the maps and looked at the green B map, and we're happy that we were able to make, hopefully, when we get there, adopt that map. But I did report to the city council so that they could see what was happening with the maps. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything to add?
I do. Last week I met with the LGBTQ Resource Center Director, Ms. Diaz, and just to open up the discussion about, I know we're moving forward in all the mandates that we're supposed to accomplish, so I want to start the conversation so that down the road, if there is room for conversation about things that they may need specific to that community, that we are available to them. So I'm going to promise to her that I'll be revisiting her again for any specific issues that may come up later. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move to item 9, IVHD expense/financial report.
So the expenses today. For administrative clerical services, $18,947.
Tomas, can you use a mic?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
For expenses today, for clerical and administrative fees, $18,947.20. Legal services, $97,757.65. Insurance for directors and officers and general liability, there were some expenses of $10,000 which we approved. For the total expenses of $127,647.13. And that's through the end of May. That's all.
Do you have any questions from the board?
No question. I have a comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
All these monies that we using right now comes from Heaven and Memorial. And we, at the beginning, voted to have $150,000 put into IVHD's account for this purposes. But we didn't anticipate the lawsuit from Pioneers, which is a huge amount of money. And we also asked Central and Pioneers to pitch in $150,000 themselves. And to this date, we haven't heard anything from them. They also received $28 million in the hospital.
District hospital.
Right. And on that bill, it says that part of that money can be used to help IVHD with the expenses. So I think Heffernan has been doing everything that it can to help IVHD succeed, but we need help from other people, other players. We came into this project in good faith. We thought we were going to have 3 players involved. As of now, we only have 1, Heffernan. So we need some relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments?
I would like to know in which bill were you referring to as far as for the distress loan bill said to use the money towards IVHD, or which bill did you say?
918.
918, is that a statement in there?
There's a statement
On the bill? Because
or where I read it is on your amended lawsuit.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have any information on that. But also too, I have to inform you that that was a loan, and it actually we had to identify where we spend that money at. Oh, sorry. So we had to identify where we were going to spend that money at before we were even approved for that loan. So I'm not real sure about extra funds coming towards the district. That's something that needs to be discussed.
Do you have any other comments from the board or questions? Do you have any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on.
There's one.
There's one. There is.
If I might, could speak from here.
Can you hear me?
No, that way everybody can, on Zoom can hear you.
And I'm going to remind the speaker that we have a 3-minute total limit. Okay, because you hit your limit at the prior public comment, so as a courtesy, we're going to give you 30 seconds.
I'll
Easier.
give him my time. The bill specifically says Heffernan, all of their funds are your money. There was nothing in the bill that said anything about getting money from the other two hospitals.
Thank you. Other comments? Thank you. We'll move on to,
I just want to make a comment about hi, I'm Pablo Velez, I'm the CEO at ECRMC. Just want to make a comment about the request for the $150,000. ECRMC is willing to lend that money, give that money, but in the interest of the conflict of interest between the Imperial Valley or Healthcare District acquiring ECRMC, I don't know how that's going to look publicly, that we're providing funds to the Healthcare District when they're acquiring us. We're more than willing to support your initiative.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments? Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 10, discussion regarding financial planning.
Yes. So, sorry, that's my item and I have to pull up. So we have been approached by the folks from Preston Hollow. Their general counsel reached out to me to ask whether this board would entertain hiring a financial planner to guide IVHD through the acquisition process with ECRMC because of the pretty complicated financial picture involved with acquiring the bond obligation. So as you know, Preston Hollow is the majority bondholder for the El Centro bonds that finance the ECRMC construction, the expansion work. It's a smart idea to get a financial planner on board to help advise with respect to finances specifically. And so it's just a discussion I wanted to start. There's no action proposed for today. But Preston Hollow has, and this is a discussion I had with the negotiating committee, Preston Hollow has stated that they would like to see IVHD at some point bring on a financial planner. And they have recommendations that they're happy to make with respect to referrals. We could try to solicit a financial planner through an RFP process. At the end of the day, if we acquire the bond obligation of El Centro, we're going to need Preston Hollow to approve the transfer of the bond obligation because they are the majority bondholder. Preston Hollow has been involved in discussions with ourselves, UCSD, ECRMC, about the potential acquisition of ECRMC, and has been super supportive and indicated that, to the extent the parties can work out a proposed merger and acquisition, Preston Hollow will not be the reason it doesn't work out. They want to make it happen. But one of their requests is that we get a financial planner, an independent financial planner for IVHD on board to make sure that there is some prudent oversight on the fiscal, what's going on the financial side. So I'm bringing it up at the request of Preston Hollow so that this board can discuss and decide, is this something you'd like us to pursue? Do you want me to bring back some proposals, some resumes, so that you can entertain hiring a financial planner as we go through, the prospective diligence process? This might also be an item that you table until after the first resolution, because the first resolution, 2024-01, is the resolution, 2024-02 is the resolution determining the terms for the proposed acquisition of ECRMC. So if that resolution passes and the board signs the LOI with ECRMC, maybe one of the next steps as we start the diligence process with El Centro would be to bring back a proposal from a financial planner, or maybe 2 or 3, for this board's consideration. I'm just passing along that information to this board.
I think personally, a financial planner with, finances out of whack, I guess you could say, would be the best interest of this. That way we have somebody outside looking in on the finances, but not only through this M&A process, but, as we expand the healthcare district, that way you always have somebody kind of outside looking in.
And auditing the financials, yeah.
Yes. So do we want to propose to bring it back, or?
Just kind of thinking out loud, we're still trying to figure out the funding mechanism, how the funds are going to work. It might be a little premature to really get a player in place at this point and start paying them for to kind of sit idle for a bit. I'm sure there's some preparatory work we need to do anyway, but I kind of feel that maybe we need to have a better idea of what money we're going to be working with, and then definitely look for recommendations also with the expertise of healthcare in mind, and go from there. So possibly it might be a little premature right now, but definitely I'm on board with getting that professional on board.
Yeah, I think we previously had discussed hiring someone to navigate for us as well. But I do think at this point, because of the financial situation, I concur with Mr. Garcia, we should table that for a while.
Do we want to have this as like an ongoing, table it to our next meeting and then just have it as an item that we keep talking about?
Yes.
Perfect. I think that's what we're going to do.
Great, I'll take that direction and we'll bring this item back to the next board meeting.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to item 11, consideration and possible approval of BMG Holdings LLC proposal for appraisal services.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take this item. Before the board is consideration of approving an appraisal by BMG Health. I participated along with folks from the City of El Centro and ECRMC in an interview of BMG to get their expertise and thoughts on an appraisal that would value ECRMC, identify all of the properties that El Centro has associated with their healthcare, so that we can have all of the properties, because I understand it's not just the hospital, it's at least 6 other auxiliary properties associated with the ECRMC or El Centro's hospital side. So it's getting that valuation done, an evaluation of the real property, land, personal property, and goodwill. We've discussed this item in the past before, but I didn't have the actual appraisal to bring before this board that would identify the scope and the costs. The costs are going to be entirely handled by the City of El Centro, so there's zero fiscal impact to this board, but before I sign anything on behalf of the board, I'd like to get the board's approval before doing so. So that's the item for the board's consideration, is approval of the engagement agreement. And the reason we want to be part of the engagement agreement is because as the appraisal is sussed out, we want to be within the scope of the privilege as the drafts are being worked through.
Do you have any comments or questions from the board?
I'm assuming in the appraisal report, I'm sure it's going to have all the properties, all the auxiliary properties. I noticed in the footnote of the, well, it might be an improper the footnote was actually in the document for the letter of intent. It mentioned there, I think it was footnote number 2 or 3, where it said some auxiliary properties may not be included. Would we be able to see what's not included?
Yes, and that's something we can ask BMG and we can ask the City of El Centro as we work through the appraisal.
My only comment on this is just because they own, my feeling is just because they own a certain structure or property, to me, if it's a vacant building, then why do we need to buy it, right? So I think we should only buy an asset if it's a true asset so that the community can benefit from that property. And so although they may have properties that aren't listed that we'll discover, if it's just an empty lot that there's no use for in the future, then why do we need it?
My thought process on that was if there was properties such as residential homes, for example, for medical staff, that were purchased with hospital money, so it became an asset. Just want to make sure that all those assets that were acquired with hospital money are part of the transaction, part of the deal. And if it's vacant, no use, what have you, then this district can sell it and then utilize that to offset some of the expense.
All right.
And I'll just, to that point too, the AB 918 requires, I'm just quoting from the statute, if the initial board of directors chooses to acquire the El Centro Regional Medical Center, the hospital shall be acquired with all of its assets and liabilities. So it's kind of a package deal.
The only reason I make that clarification is because we're talking about El Centro and the hospital.
Right.
So would it, I don't know how it worked, right? But let's say the bought through the hospital, but it's under the El Centro name, you know, so that's what I'm coming from.
I just want to make a comment on that. That was a footnote that when we initiated the process of the appraisal, all the properties were listed there on that initial proposal. Since then, we have gone back and added all of the properties. So when you're looking at when the appraisal is done, it's going to be done with all the properties. El Centro owns, ECRMC owns a couple of homes, 5, and we house some medical staff. So,
Yeah. Do we have any other questions or comments on the board? Do you have any public comments?
There's a hand up on the screen.
Do I have a motion?
On Zoom, someone is.
It's at the board's discretion. If folks want to allow it. Usually Zoom chat and comment is disabled, but if you want to allow it, you can allow it.
Yeah, we can allow it.
I'm fine with the question as long as they're willing to identify themselves.
Yeah. I'm trying to check to see. Whoever wanted to give the comment that was on Zoom that raised their hand, do you want to unmute yourself and identify yourself, please? I think it was Michael Gaya, Adriana Mendaris. They have the ability to unmute themselves, I believe. If you do not have the ability to unmute yourself, please let us know in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat right now.
I do believe it did say that he didn't give them the option to unmute themselves when we muted the whole crowd.
You all?
We got a lot.
Can you just push the 3 buttons in the corner and then say ask to unmute? Yeah. So he did. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, could I make a comment regarding the resolution 2024-03?
No, ma'am, we're not on that item yet, but when we get there, you can most definitely make a comment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So do I have any other comments on item 11 for the consideration and approval of BMG Holdings LLC? I believe I had a motion by Director Goodson.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Goodson and a second by Garcia. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Now we move on to item 12, approval of conflict waiver for Hooper Lundy.
Yes, I'll take that item too. So, Hooper Lundy, which is our special regulatory counsel, has asked for a waiver to be approved with respect to, oh, you know what? And I have a copy of members of the public want to observe it. It's a letter from Hooper Lundy dated June 11, asking for a conflict waiver. Hooper Lundy would like to represent ECRMC through in connection to an unrelated matter. So a matter that would be unrelated to the acquisition of ECRMC. Specifically, they are being asked to work on hospital physician alignment models. So they would need, because they represent IVHD and we are negotiating opposite ECRMC with respect to the acquisition of the hospital, lawyers are not allowed to work for both sides, so we would need a conflict waiver from IVHD to allow Hooper Lundy to advise ECRMC regarding hospital or physician alignment models. I'll point out a couple things. The letter does say that they, to the extent that they possess or learn confidential information about Imperial Valley, they're not allowed to disclose that to ECRMC. It would be against their ethical obligation. To the extent they learn anything confidential about ECRMC, they're not allowed to disclose that to IVHD. That would also be a violation of their ethical obligation. The lawyers at Hooper Lundy who would be working with us on the acquisition are different people than the lawyers who would be working with ECRMC on the hospital alignment models. And they would set up an ethical screen, which is required by law, as pursuant to the conflict waiver process, to make sure that none of Imperial Valley Healthcare District's information is shared with personnel representing ECRMC. So they're asking for a conflict waiver so that they can do that hospital physician alignment work. It's at the board's discretion whether to approve it or not, but they asked me to ask.
Do you have any questions?
I have a question. This is in regards to El Centro Regional Medical Center, or El Centro, but actually now UCSD is managing El Centro. So is there a conflict there?
We already have we already approved a few board meetings ago a conflict waiver with Hooper Lundy and UCSD, and it remains that the ethical obligation of the attorneys is to the extent that there's work that's actually in conflict, they can't do that.
Okay.
And they have to set up ethical screens, and it has to be different people.
I didn't see that in the minutes, so I just wanted to make sure, unless they want to done. Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions or comments? No motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the conflict waiver for Hooper Lundy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Medart and a second by Proctor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And with that, we'll now move on to item 13, presentation of draft maps by National Demographics Corporation.
And I'm going to introduce for the fourth and fifth time Mr. Jeff Tilton from National Demographics Corporation. We're going to move into our public hearing pursuant to Elections Code 10010A1. I want to point out that we have a special meeting agenda also published for today, same date, same time. The special meeting agenda is one item. It's a public hearing. It's a second public hearing pursuant to Elections Code 100A1. The second hearing will be to consider an ordinance which basically mirrors Resolution 2024-01. So what we'll do is we're going to take Mr. Tilton's presentation on public hearings 4 and 5 together, as long as it's okay with this board. And then after the last item on the regular meeting agenda, we'll break into the special meeting and consider the second public hearing and the second. All that we're considering in the second public hearing is approval of the ordinance. And if you're wondering why are we doing a resolution and an ordinance, it's because AB 918 specifically says that we have to adopt a resolution to establish voting districts. However, Elections Code 10010 contemplates an ordinance adopting electoral districts. It's really, there is a hierarchy. It goes motion, resolution, ordinance is the highest. An ordinance can only be superseded by another ordinance, but an ordinance can supersede a resolution or a motion. For example, a motion cannot supersede an ordinance. So there is, pursuant to Robert's rules, some value to having the ordinance being the mechanism by which we're approving the voting districts, but because we want to satisfy AB 918 fully, we're going to do a resolution, and then we're also going to do an ordinance. We can do both. They don't conflict with each other. The ordinance is going to supersede the resolution, and it says so in the ordinance. So I'm happy to take any questions about that if you'd like, but first, we're going to have Mr. Tilton give the presentation of draft maps, and the only other thing I'm going to note is that we are going to talk through the same 3 draft maps that we talked about at the last hearing, which is green, purple, and orange, or another color. And then pursuant to the discussion at the last board meeting, we also have green B. And I'll say for the public record that green B was published on the website on May 16, 2024, and is available to the public on the website. Mr. Tilton, take it away.
So, yeah, this is my 4th time before you. It's good to see everyone again. And actually the 4th and 5th time. And hopefully I'll see you, it won't be you, in 2031 after the 2030 census. But hopefully I'll be invited back. That I did mind my manners while I was visiting here and we figured it out. So we started off this process with 2 public hearings just to educate the public. You know, see, we have a lot of new faces in here. So my apologies for those who've heard this 3 times previously. The first 2 public hearings were to provide information about the process and to educate the community about the process and to gather any information with respect to composition of draft map. The first set of draft maps, there were 3 of them, were released by law May 2nd, and then in conjunction with the May 9th public hearing, which was the last time I was here, not we, it was just me, one guy. And we had 3 draft maps. And I'll run through those briefly. We're here tonight for the 4th and then the 5th public hearing. They can be done on the same night as well. As council said, a map that was coming to the board and the public for the first time was published before the law requires 7 days in advance. Next slide, please. So in this process, we must follow federal laws. And what we're trying to do in this particular case is create 7 election districts of equal population. And that equal population is based on, hold yourself, the 2020 census. And so here we are in 2024, we're here at half point of 2024, but we must use the 2024 census. And in order to create these districts, we must use census blocks. So that's how we get the numbers per district. We can have a 10% variance the court allows over those 7 districts. So equal population, it's almost impossible to do. Again, because we use census blocks, and I use the term that census blocks are like snowflakes, none are the same size, not the same amount of people reside in the same, in the same size of a census block, etc. We must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act and have no racial gerrymandering. Then we shift to California, and we must go in prioritized order when we're drafting districts, that these districts are geographically contiguous. We want to minimize the divisions of neighborhoods or communities of interest, and all these maps do that. We want to minimize the divisions of cities and census-designated places. You'll see some cities who haven't been divided because that would create an unequal population in a district. So that's permissible. We want to have easily identifiable boundaries, and we want our districts to be compact. There is also a California prohibition that we shall not adopt election district boundaries for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent political candidate or political party. Next slide, please. So it came before the board for the May 9th public hearing with 3 draft maps, green, purple, and tan. I received direction from the board to take the green map and, pardon my professional language, tweak it, which we will call green B. And that will be on the next slide, please. And in essence, the request was to create an area basically south of the city of Hopeville to include that in that same district as Hopeville. We've done that, but we've had to take from 5 to add to 7, et cetera, to make sure we respect the equal population law in this case. So we did that where before District 5 used to stop at Interstate 8. It didn't stretch all the way down into Calexico, as you see here. And that's the only way we were able to respect that wish to create a green B. It's a viable map. It meets the threshold that it's under 10% with respect to equal population. And then next slide, please. So here's just a blown-up view where we're looking at Hopeville. Previously, again, that District Area 5, the tan area, essentially surrounded the lower part of Hopeville. Now it has the country club in place there on this new green B map. Let's go to the next slide, please. And with that, we must create election sequencing. The board gave me direction to have the initial election in 2026 with zones 1, 2, and 3 up for election in 2026 and zones 4, 5, 6, and 7 in 2028. So that's the green B map. Happy to answer any questions from the board, should you have any. But again, thank you again. Redistricting will happen after the 2030 census. Hopefully, I will be back here. No, it won't be you, but in 2031. So thanks.
With that, I'll open the public hearing at 7:24. Do you have any comments or questions for the board?
I have a question on the new map. If I understand correctly, Calexico is 2 and it's adjacent with 5. Is that?
That's correct, yeah.
And 5 encompasses part of Calexico and what other cities?
It doesn't encompass Calexico. Can you go to the one that has the zoom? So that's the slide before this one. There you go. So Calexico is, you can see it is split. It has District 7 and District 2. There's too many people in Calexico to have its own district.
So District 7 will be the districts that will be adjacent to Calexico.
Correct.
And what are those cities on 7? What cities are on Hopeville?
Yeah, Hopeville and Calexico. I think those are the only 2 incorporated cities in Division 7. Yeah. There's others called census designated places. They're not incorporated cities, and so you'll see those. You see like Ocotillo in District 4. You see Ocotillo and Westmoreland, and some of those others are they're whole because there's enough people. We don't want to split those.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as we can. But those are both CPs. Good question. Thanks.
Do you have any other questions from the board? Do we have any public comments? Seeing none, then I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:26. And then we're going to move on to item 15, consideration and possible action to approve the following resolutions. The first one would be resolution number 2024-01, resolution of Board of Directors of Imperial Valley Healthcare District establishing voting districts pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.7 as added by California Assembly Bill 918.
I'll briefly take this one. So this is the same resolution, slightly modified, that was brought to the board's attention at the last board meeting. What we've done is we've finalized it with the districts and with attaching the proposed Green B map for the board's consideration, if Green B is the map that you would like to select. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the resolution. Again, it's the same resolution that we brought to the board in draft form at the last regular board meeting, May board meeting.
Any comments, questions, or motions?
I make a motion to move forward with Green B.
So
to adopt the resolution?
Yeah, I would recommend you revise your motion to approve resolution number 2024-01.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-01 to resolution of the Board of Directors of the Bureau Valley Healthcare District establishing voting district pursuant to Healthcare and Safety Code Section 32499.7 as added by California Assembly Bill 918/2023 to incorporate the map identified as G Green B.
Second.
I have a motion by Garcia and a second by Medard Jr. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I have any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item B, resolution number 2024-02, resolution of the Board of Directors of Imperial Valley Healthcare District determining the terms that would be proposed for the acquisition of El Centro Regional Medical Center pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6 as added by California Assembly Bill 918.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to point out for the benefit of the public and for the benefit of the board that with the proposed resolution that was just approved, the board has satisfied its first obligation under 8918 Health and Safety Code 32499.7 B, which is the establishment of voting districts for IVHD. So that's one item to check off of your roadmap, and I just want to congratulate the board on that.
Thank you.
You can move on to the second resolution.
No worries. That's something, checking the first box is definitely something to note. So, thank you. But yeah, next to the.
So,
yours.
Yes, the next item is also mine, 2024-02. This resolution proposes the terms for the acquisition of El Centro Regional Medical Center pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6. So what the resolution proposes to do is approve and authorize the board chair to sign a non-binding letter of intent relating to the acquisition of El Centro Regional Medical Center. We have had a number of extensive discussions and negotiation sessions with El Centro, ECRMC, UCSD, and Preston Hollow relating to the potential acquisition of ECRMC. We have NDA signed with each of the parties as approved by this board. We've had ample negotiation sessions, including one all-hands negotiation session between our ad hoc team, Director Goodsell, Director Garcia, and Director Burnworth, along with folks from ECRMC, UCSD, El Centro, and Preston Hollow. A really fruitful discussion about the benefits and potential opportunities for acquisition of the hospital. And the LOI describes terms that have been negotiated and discussed by all parties relating to the potential acquisition of ECRMC. So what I'm going to do is just walk through the LOI for the benefit of the board and the public. It's attached to the agenda, and there's a cover letter that establishes that these are non-binding terms, but these are the terms that we want to take into the next few months as we pursue and begin, hopefully, the diligence process, which will help us to identify the agreements and the regulatory approvals necessary to transition the hospital to ownership by IVHD. The first kind of chart behind the LOI, the schedule of non-binding proposed terms and conditions, starts with an overview of ECRMC that establishes ECRMC as a municipal hospital and enterprise fund of the city. So ECRMC is a separate legal entity from the city of El Centro. The city of El Centro owns the real estate, and ECRMC owns various property in the hospital and runs the hospital with its more recently manager at UCSD, as has been agreed by the parties through formal joint powers agreement. ECRMC is a governmental agency that encompasses more than just acute care, the acute care medical center known as ECRMC. So to avoid confusion, we're calling the hospital together with all the outpatient centers and other healthcare operation and services in question the El Centro Healthcare Establishment. And that will be further fleshed out as we go through the appraisal process and the diligence process, like what is encompassed by ECRMC. So this transaction will effectuate the intent of AB 918 to transfer the El Centro healthcare establishment from ECRMC and the City of El Centro on the one hand to IVHD on the other hand through a transfer of all relevant assets and liabilities. ECRMC in its legal form would be dissolved, and the El Centro healthcare establishment would be owned and operated by IVHD as contemplated by AB 918. So who are the sellers here? The proposed sellers is the City of El Centro and ECRMC. The transfer of assets involved would be the real property, which is the hospital and all of the auxiliary properties, along with the equipment, facilities, personal property, accounts receivable, and the benefits received under all contracts held by ECRMC. So this mirrors the contemplated, this mirrors the goals of AB 918 articulated in the bill, which is on the Pioneers and Heffernan side, all the assets and liabilities of those healthcare districts become the assets and liabilities of IVHD as the successor agency. So it's where we're trying to mirror and accomplish the same thing with respect to ECRMC. We just have to negotiate it and paper it because the legislature cannot dissolve the city because charter cities have constitutional rights. The legislature does have the ability to dissolve and establish and create special districts, which is a healthcare district. So that's why they have the power to dissolve Pioneers and Heffernan and call for the creation of IVHD. But we're trying to mirror the transfer of assets of AB 918 into this transaction. Assumption of liabilities. So as set forth, as I commented earlier, AB 918 contemplates that we take on all assets and liabilities of ECRMC if we agree to this transfer. So this schedule identifies in very broad terms the assumption of liabilities with respect to the bonds and the assumption of liabilities with respect to the joint powers agreement. So in May, earlier this year, ECRMC, El Centro, and UCSD entered into a joint powers agreement, which establishes UCSD as the operator and manager of the hospital, which has been the situation for many years. It's just formalized through the joint powers process. So what we would be doing is assuming the position of El Centro at ECRMC, stepping into their shoes as part of that joint powers agreement, which is pretty nice because it's all laid out in the joint powers agreement what the obligations of UCSD would be and what the rights and obligations of this board would be. Assumption of liabilities other includes, for example, collective bargaining agreements, which are specifically mentioned in the bill, AB 918, retirement plans, and other kind of vendor agreements, other physician and physician provider agreements. If not assumable, IVHD would indemnify the city or ECRMC against such liabilities. That's stuff that we would work through in the diligence process, is identifying contracts, identifying liabilities so that we understand before we draft the asset transfer agreement and before this board actually agrees to take anything on that we've identified all of the liabilities. Regulatory approvals, this is what Hooper Lundy would help us do, but make all the required filings. We're required by AB 918 to try to transfer with respect to, I think, Pioneers. I don't think it's with respect to ECRMC. Within a year of establishment, so before October, begin processing the license transfers. So this would include some of that, and UCSD and the folks at Hooper Lundy would help us with the regulatory approvals to make sure that we are transferring licenses and approvals and permits that are necessary for IVHD to run the hospital. The employees are another part of the deal. So we would make offers of employment to all the employees of ECRMC who are in good standing and at no less than the same rate of pay being provided to such employees at the time of closing. And to the best extent possible, we would try to make make sure that the benefits are substantially comparable to the benefits they currently receive through ECRMC, because we don't want the employees of the hospital to be prejudiced by this transfer. Same medical staff. We would assume the medical staff along with the medical staff organization to ensure continuity of care and to make sure that that body is substantially unchanged as a result of the transaction. The consideration for the transaction, so this is a no-cost transfer expressly because A, it's going from a public agency to a public agency, and B, because it's expressly contemplated by the terms of the statute. So we're trying to accomplish the goals initiated by the legislature. The nature of the definitive agreement. So at the end of the day, what does this look like? If the board chooses to approve this LOI, which would be a very big deal because it establishes all the parties and for the public's benefit, the both parties' intent to enter into this agreement to shift the obligation of the hospital, to shift the operation of the hospital from ECRMC to IVHD, which is the goal of AB 918. It would result in an asset transfer agreement, which would identify the city and ECRMC as the transferors. It would identify IVHD as the transferee. It would include deeds for the hospital property, bills of sale, assignment and assumption agreements, and the parties intend to sign the asset transfer agreement no later than November 5 in order to accomplish the goals of AB 918. And we would try to facilitate the transfers of licenses in compliance with regulatory requirements shortly thereafter. That is the big picture. We have folks from ECRMC and UCSD available for questions if there are any. But this was an LOI that was vetted by our negotiating committee and unanimously approved for recommendation for approval to this board. So you can direct questions to the folks from ECRMC, UCSD, to me, or to any member of the negotiating committee.
Any questions?
I do have a question, well, I have a concern. As far as a financial planner, I think that we would definitely need one before we went into any kind of agreement for this. So I don't know where you're going to be, where you're fitting that on the timeline, because I wouldn't want to make this decision without advice from a financial planner. So therefore, I'm not real sure what the rest of the board, how the rest of the board feels, but I would not enter into this unless I had advice from a financial planner.
Do you mean you would enter into the asset transfer agreement or the LOI?
Well, the whole thing. I mean, we need someone that actually can explain all of those.
Didn't you just say earlier that it's too early?
Well, yeah, it's too early, but if we're going to do this, I mean...
So this is a non-binding letter of intent. It expresses this board's intent to move forward with drafting the agreement that would be binding.
Right. But
so between now and November 5, bring a financial planner on board to make sure this board is fully vetted and fully advised independently with respect to finances before you sign that agreement.
Yes, but because there's going to be discussion from now until November, that would have to be related to financial planner and to the ad hoc committee for their understanding. So that was my concern.
Do you have any other questions?
Just a comment. A big takeaway from this also is another way to look at it is El Centro and El Centro Regional Medical Center. They're at the table and we're talking, and so this is kind of a non-binding outline, but it's great to let the public know that the conversations are happening.
Yeah, and that the parties are very serious about it. Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, comments, or motions?
I'd like to make the motion to approve resolution number 2024-02, resolution of the Board of Directors of the Imperial Valley Healthcare District determining the terms that would be proposed for the acquisition of the El Centro Regional Medical Center pursuant to Health and Safety Code section 32499.6 as added by California Assembly Bill 918, 2023.
I'll second.
Thank you. And before we vote, I'm just going to have a public comment.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak before you vote. I'd like to bring your attention to
Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is John Grass. I represent the Coalition for Sustainable Healthcare Facilities. I'm a resident of Raleigh. I'd like to bring your attention to the third paragraph of the resolution. Is whereas pursuant to code, the board would do financial feasibility studies conducted by Bureau County LAFCO and Kaufman Hall and confirm the financial viability of integrating the healthcare establishment into IVHD. On February 22nd, this board heard the reports on those feasibility studies. It was the conclusions of those reports were that the reports were incomplete, insufficient, outdated data, and only one of them made recommendations with regards to funding. Kaufman Hall did not make recommendations regarding the funding source. I'm concerned that you would enter into a resolution with a flawed feasibility study that's a part of the foundation. If that's been part of the discussions of acquisition, that's fine, but the public hasn't been made aware of your finding on feasibility. The public has not been made aware of your rationale as to how feasibility was determined. So I would recommend that the motion be tabled until there could be adequate and sufficient public discussion regarding the feasibility with updated information. And I understand that Pioneers hasn't provided a lot of the information to complete those studies, but even without that information, it was agreed that the data submitted was outdated and needed to be brought up to speed. So I would also like to see more information regarding recommendations on a funding source, which is going to be included in a ballot resolution. The public needs to know what they're going to vote on. And so I would recommend that you table this resolution until more discussion and public discussion may be held regarding feasibility. It's important that transparency on this is transparent in all areas. And this is a very crucial piece of the acquisition. So I'd like for the public to be very aware about it today and all of that. Thank you.
I will say that the feasibility study conducted by Kaufman Hall was conducted for the purposes of determining, as Mr. Grass correctly says, the funding source mechanism. And this doesn't purport that we have confirmed the financial viability of any funding source mechanism. This says that we're confirming the financial viability of integrating the healthcare establishment into IVHD. Those are two different things. And so we did have two feasibility studies that were presented to this board with information regarding ECRMC, which City of El Centro and ECRMC at least fully participated in. And with that, we do feel that there's sufficient information, along with the information that we've received from ECRMC and UCSD, to confirm the financial viability of integrating ECRMC into IVHD. Again, separate and apart from funding mechanism, which we are in a difficult position as we face that determination, which is not before the board at this board meeting. But when we start talking about the funding source mechanism, we are going to be in a position to discuss financial feasibility. That's a separate issue.
Do you have any other questions or motion?
I'll keep my motion on the table.
Do you have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Menard Jr. and a second by Proctor. Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Bernhardt?
Yes.
Goodsell?
Yes.
Menard Jr.?
Yes.
Proctor?
Yes.
Berker?
No.
Valdez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to item C, resolution number 2023 or 2024-03, resolution of the Board of Directors of Imperial Valley Healthcare District determining pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6 as added by California Assembly Bill 918, the recommended date on which Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District will be dissolved.
Comment from City Manager.
Yes. With the public comment from
Ms. Armendariz, if you'd like to give your public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Adriana Armendariz. I am from Calexico. And regarding the resolution, we were not aware about it. Heffernan wants the resolution date to be the same as Pioneers. Heffernan also does not want to be disclosed if Pioneers is not dissolved. Heffernan does not want to be dissolved if El Centro Regional Medical Hospital is not part of the IV board. Hefferman's taxpayers are incurring heavy expenses, especially legal expenses, without El Centro Regional Medical and Pioneers providing their share of expense. Imperial Valley Health District board members have refused to meet with Heffernan Memorial board members or our trustees. Good faith discussion regarding the dissolution date and providing of the healthcare services by Heffernan have never been held. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a question. So this is the second time I've heard it tonight that Heffernan has actually reached out to IVHD to have meetings and discussions. And I will be the first to say, I, as the board president, have never once received any inquiry. I've not received a phone call, email, text message, nothing that I'm aware of. Has any of my board members gotten any discussion?
No.
So it's,
Okay, did I respond to that?
Discussed
Our CEO, Mr. Villepin, we have asked them, and it hasn't been held. We gave directions for him to discuss it with you guys that we wanted to meet.
And in fact,
at
we
the
did.
Heffernan district.
So, and I'll find the date, but I will say I did have previously mentioned May 21st was our discussion to discuss with Mr. Villepin and Mr. Rivera the due diligence items and the dissolution date that we proposed. And Mr. Villepin can correct me if I'm misstating anything, but we did discuss specifically October 1 and November 1 and whether or not that would be acceptable or burdensome or, to Heffernan out of an abundance of courtesy. Mr. Villepin said that would be fine.
yeah. I mean, I will be the first to say my contact information and all my fellow board members' contact information is on public information. It's on our website. And you have every form to reach out, especially if you feel that your CEO is not relaying that message to us. As board members, you can reach out. Any member of the public, I mean, anybody here, my contact information, if you'd like it, I will more than definitely give it to you. So,
Okay, thank you. It was my understanding he was telling you guys as a board, that's what Heffernan wants, is meet with you guys as a board with our board for further discussion. And I'm understanding now that you're telling me that he hasn't reached out to you guys, because I know there's a different topic. My concern was also the reimbursement of our clerical. That's a different topic that we're not talking about right now. And I guess I'm getting misinformation by our CEO.
No, to be clear, he did reach out, and we did have a Zoom to discuss exactly this topic. So, Tomas participated in a conversation about this with us.
And that was with their general counsel, correct?
Yeah. I have the email right here.
Well, we were not aware. I'm sorry, why we were not aware. I have no reason. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Thank you.
I would like to say as a member of this board, I have never refused to meet with Heffernan. I've never been approached, and so I would like that put on the record.
I also want to say the president of your board, Sylvia Bernal, has, except for this meeting, this is the first meeting I have not seen her here. She's been very vocal. Got up, we discussed bringing these resolutions at our last meeting. We asked her specifically what date works for Heffernan, because I know that they're getting ready to do their urgent care, and she said that there were things that they wanted to finish, and October 1 would be correct. You also have a board member on the Heffernan board that sits on this board as well. And so I'm kind of lost about those requests for meetings that never happen.
And you know what? Thank you for that. We're a governing board that we are appointed board members, and our board consists of 5 members. It doesn't consist of 2 members or 1 member. And thank you very much, because we will reach out to you. We do want to meet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just point out the page 10 of the minutes that were approved previously today have a few paragraphs from about the discussion from the board president from Heffernan, Ms. Bednan, informing the board, and I'll read directly from the minutes. When actually the Heffernan director was the director that made the motion to bring the dissolution resolution to the parties to this board meeting. And then Mr. Garcia asked, are there any key indicators that will let us know what a good time would be for Heffernan to hand over the keys, because they might not say right now, or are we in the middle of something? We want to consider those board members. Is there a best time to consider this transition? And the board president got up and said, they're in the middle of a big project with the urgent care center, that they're going to, the biggest urgent care in the valley, the date to finish that is no later than August. We have some things to do, you need to finish before you decide to dissolve. She informed the directors that they're fully 100% with them and willing to do whatever needs to be done for your district to take over, but we need time, this is important to us. Ms. Burnworth said thank you, we're very cognizant and respectful, want to know, what date would work best for you, basically. So all of that's reflected in the minutes, the discussion that was had with the Heffernan Board President at the last open public board meeting.
Adriana, can you explain what this resolution does as far as
Sure,
the
yeah.
dissolution date? Because then this is just a recommendation.
Right.
After this
doesn't
then
do
goes to
anything.
LAFCO.
This doesn't dissolve Heffernan, to be clear. So this is the IVHD Board's obligation under AB 918 to recommend to Imperial County LAFCO a date for the dissolution of the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District. The dissolution date shall be between July 1 and January 1. And the Board of Directors may recommend a date that differs from the dissolution date of Pioneers. After we approve this resolution, if the board approves the resolution, then I'm reading later on into AB 918 32499.95. Then, upon receipt of the recommendation from the Board of Directors of IVHD, the Imperial County LAFCO shall determine the appropriate dates to dissolve Heffernan. So we make a recommendation, which is what this resolution does. We provide notice of this resolution to Imperial Valley LAFCO. Imperial Valley LAFCO is ultimately the entity that will decide on that dissolution date. So I will point out to the Heffernan Board that you still have an opportunity to decide or to weigh in on when your dissolution date is going to be. If you want a date that's different than the resolution date indicated by the recommendation of this board, let Imperial Valley LAFCO know, because they are entitled by AB 918 to choose a different date than the one we're recommending.
First of all, I'm going to address the issue that has been brought up again. Mr. Wiederskin put together a Zoom call with council. I was supposed to be part of that, and it didn't go through. So with council, I never met with you.
There was a black screen that said Eduardo Rivera on my Zoom.
It was a black screen? Is that what you're saying?
A black box that said Eduardo Rivera.
Yeah, I tried to get on. I couldn't hear you. I told Mr. Wiederskin.
Oh.
I text Mr. Wiederskin. I don't have any sound. So I just didn't meet with you, okay? It's just as simple as that. It's not, the meeting took place between both of you, and I never got a chance to even hear what was determined. So,
Sir, on our phone call that we had earlier today, you in fact did say that you met with my legal counsel. So now are you changing your story?
Legal counsel?
With our legal counsel? Absolutely. No. Me and you and Mr. Valdez were on a phone call earlier today, correct? And you did say that you met with my attorney.
No, ma'am.
Yes, you did. Mr. Valdez was on there.
I have never met with your legal counsel.
So are you calling my attorney a liar?
Of course not. Of course not. All I'm trying to tell you is that the call was scheduled by Mr. Wiederskin. I didn't have any volume. I couldn't hear, and I went off.
So you never called Mr. Virgin and told him those technical difficulties?
Yeah, I texted him. So the bottom line is, I never participated in that call. And number two is, we're asking this district to not adopt a resolution. To adopt a resolution that's consistent with the dissolution of Pioneers.
Okay, we can change that. I have no problem changing the date to be the same date that's for PMH. And I told you that on our phone call earlier today too.
I agree. And I also mentioned to you that we don't want to be dissolved unless Pioneers is dissolved. So you're in the middle of litigation right now. You don't know whether you're going to be successful or not. Hopefully you will. But you don't know that. The litigation is just starting. And all we're asking is that because of all of this confusion, there's allegations that you told some board members. I can tell you that the board as a whole was never told about October 1st. That's as simple as that.
As a whole, he was at our last board meeting.
Ma'am, I'm telling you that the board from Heffernan has never been told that October 1st was a proposed dissolution. until we got your agenda. And we got it on Monday, and it was distributed to the balance of the board members, and we discussed it on Wednesday. So, ma'am, you can do whatever you want. All we're asking you to consider is consult with Heffernan. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. That's your prerogative. You're an independent board. But I'm asking you, as respectfully as I can, don't adopt it, talk to us, and, you know, you have a meeting on July 10th. It's not the end of the world if you don't adopt it today. So anyway, that's all I have to say. But ma'am, I never spoke to you.
Okay.
You know, we intended to speak, but we never spoke.
Okay. I will also say, and the members of the ad hoc committee can weigh in on this because for the benefit of the rest of the board, we were intentional. We tried to be really thoughtful about selecting dates. So let me just tell you why the date for the date for Heffernan is different than the proposed date for Pioneers. There's a reason for that. So in our discussions, we said, well, Heffernan doesn't have a hospital and Pioneers does. We're in the middle of litigation with Pioneers. We're not in the middle of litigation with Heffernan, thankfully. We've talked to LAFCO, and in fact, we have a meeting scheduled again next week with LAFCO to discuss both what we hope to be these resolutions and the funding mechanisms. One of the reasons we chose October 1st is because we wanted to be respectful of that August timeframe with respect to the urgent care. And we didn't want it to drag on in light of, for example, many of the public comments that we heard today about getting Heffernan dissolved so that we can start fulfilling the obligations of AB 918. One of the reasons we chose 60 days between Heffernan and Pioneers is because we wanted to make sure, well, first, it is far more complicated to dissolve and acquire Pioneers because they run a hospital. And so we want to be very careful and respectful of AB 918's mandate to not disrupt public health care services in Imperial Valley. And we wanted to say, okay, if we dissolve Heffernan, that's way more straightforward. And any lessons we learn, we, in IVHD and LAFCO, any lessons that we learn from the dissolution of Heffernan, maybe there's some hiccup, something happens, oh, we didn't contemplate that, let's fix it. We can have that experience before we do it with Pioneers so that we can take those lessons learned and implement them before we move forward with the Pioneers dissolution, or assuming, again, that LAFCO goes with our recommended dates, which they don't have to. We don't know if they're going to. But that's one of the reasons that we chose two different dates. And the ad hoc committee was trying to be very courteous by saying, let's put October 1 and let's have that big blank line, right? So we have this line on the resolution so that we can fill in another date if this board comes to the conclusion that October 1 doesn't make any sense. Actually, Heffernan needs more time. I haven't heard what they need more time for, but if there's a good faith basis to strike October 1 and write in a new date, no problem. You know, as our board chair said.
They're at it. And Rivera and everybody's at it.
And
did.
Can you mute yourself, please?
And again, we can also, if this board is uncomfortable with the representation about, you know, it doesn't say, it says IVHD representatives. I am an IVHD representative tasked by this board to have these discussions. Have discussed in good faith with representatives from the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District. Mr. Buchanan is the CEO of Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District and a representative, and the Heffernan Board President is a representative of the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District. The proposed dates for dissolving the Healthcare Memorial Healthcare District in the manner least disruptive to the provision of healthcare services in the community. I stand by that whereas. That's not a necessary whereas again. If this board would prefer to strike it so that it's not in there, we could do that. We're not required to do that under AB 918. We were really just, no good deed goes unpunished, right? We were trying to be as courteous as we could, but we don't need to have that in there. You can strike it if you want and still approve the resolution.
Can we bring up Heffernan's special board meeting tomorrow on this?
And some of our now has a raised hand also for comments.
Okay, actually, we have a public comment here.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, Miss Hurtado, is that right? You reserved a minute and 30 seconds.
Hi again. Those of you that were not here earlier, my name is Marie Trutado. I'm a businesswoman in downtown Calexico, very involved, former mayor of the city and the team person that ran the Calexico recall, where we recalled 2 city council members in Calexico. Right now, I'm looking at all of this from the outside, paying a lot of attention to what it is that's being discussed about Calexico in particular, and it's really confusing. I'm sorry if I didn't catch your name, sir. You were the attorney for ECRMC, and I heard you, but you said that if El Centro Regional wants to then contribute to 150,000 or something, that there's a conflict of interest. However, Calexico looks as a complete conflict of interest because Tomas Virgen is an employee of Calexico. That was really confusing to see this board have Tomas Virgen provide the service here, and that we would be billed as far as Heffernan monies for the 150 or whatever it is, the funding that's getting this to happen. So if there is a conflict, I don't see where the difference is for Calexico. It's the same thing. Because you're saying then that El Centro wouldn't want to provide 150,000 because then they're being absorbed. So are we. But then we also have a board member here and he's serving the city of Calexico as well over there. That was really confusing to Calexico. How do we have, and as you can see, Calexico does have a bit of a mess and lack of communication and just issues all around. We believe that that's why our recall was so successful, because our citizens are fed up. We are probably, I'm going to say because I lived there so long and in the business so long, we have the short end of the stick. When it comes down to the services for health, during COVID it was horrific. We had the Mexicali factor. When I look at the district maps, I always take that into consideration, what happened during COVID, that the impact of the Mexicali residents that came into Imperial County was mostly through Calexico. Our numbers were the highest. And that is when Heffernan failed us the most. They decided to close programs and they decided to initiate this so-called clinic. The clinic is landlocked. I do apologize that we did kind of giggle a little right now when someone said that it was the largest clinic in Imperial Valley. That's not true. It is a very small clinic, and the uncomfortable thing about that for the citizens of Calexico is that we just had a change order, probably about a year ago, a $2 million change order. That's very uncomfortable. And so it's a money pit. We're tired of it, and we need services. So to see that we still, as a city, do not have a hospital, but yet we're providing all the funding for this board, and we appreciate the board. We need this to be dissolved. That is why we are here, and why we will be continuously involved here. We want to be at the table. We're finally here at the table as a city because we have so many needs that have been unattended. But look at what's happening. We have to mix all of our assets for such a long time to have had a savings, a health savings, for what? We have not been serviced.
Ms. Hurtado, I'm sorry to cut you off. Your 2 minutes are up.
2 minutes. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you for your comment.
So I just want to clarify that ECRMC is being acquired by the new Imperial Valley Healthcare District. Both Heffernan and Pioneer Memorial are part of the district, so that was why I was making that distinction for you. So we are willing to provide funding. I just want to make sure that in the public eye doesn't look like we, ECRMC, are providing funds for an organization that is supposed to enter into negotiation and acquire ECRMC.
I would also like to add for clarification that Assembly Bill 918 does express that the Heffernan funds are to provide the administrative services for this board. And so just to put that out there.
Hello, Joseph Guilin, resident of El Centro, and I'm a business owner in Calexico. I just wanted to go off on the same thing. You guys are already having headaches, and I appreciate all the work. Are you the attorney here? Yes. Okay. I appreciate your work. I would love you guys, maybe if you have a sister or someone that's in law that could come to Calexico and help us out. Because this is the type of stuff we need, right, to explain everything that's going on. You know? You guys are already having headaches. I mean, this is why it needs to be dissolved. I mean, I don't, it's on display here. It's no communication, it's excuses after excuses. It's like, come on. I mean, you were elected to do meetings, and if that meeting is on Zoom, I mean, someone gave you the link, right? There's no excuse for that. So you message people back and get, let them know that, hey, I'm not able to understand, or I'm not hearing anything, There's no excuses for that. And I'm so sorry that you guys have to go through this. It's embarrassing to have elected these people, and they're still wanting to do this, So sad. So sad that we're paying $1 million, and they're still not giving us anything back. That clinic has been abandoned and potentially could get burned down because of how many things have been burning down the place, And for me, I totally support this. Get it done as soon as possible. Give it to you guys so you guys can do something with it, an actual board with actual people from different cities and have different opinions on how we can serve the people. Right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesus Solano, 426 Rosemont, Calexico. Well, as you are aware now, how disorganized Heffernan Board is. Okay. So just figure out how disorganized it is at our community down in Calexico. No check and balance, no transparency. We have been taxed for years and years and years. No service. Okay. We have a hospital on wheels, 2 ambulances. 15 days ago, we had a situation where one of them went out. They sent it to the shop. They didn't want to repair it. Why? Because the bills had not been paid from back from 22. Just imagine that. That's our hospital on wheels. Okay. So where is Heffernan Board? And it's embarrassing for me to be up here speaking out. Okay. We have a director that's on payroll. We have a board member. And the board members are not on the same page. How long has it been that 918 is here in the valley? Maybe, 8 months, somewhere around there, give or take? And for this time to kind of be asking like for an extension, like, oh, we got to kind of figure out, we want to meet with you guys. I think it's a little bit late in the game. In my understanding, under the 918, it's not an option or an ask. It's a mandate. It's either before or at the end of the year. I don't know if it's at the discretion of this board. Are you planning to formulate a resolution to submit it to NAPCO to get an extension for them? And if that's a procedure, are you guys going all the way to Congress and tell, we need an extension, to dissolve Heffernan Board? I'm demanding to this board, to submit your resolution and your reference to LAPCO to dissolve it as soon as possible. Yeah. Why procrastinate on something that you have to do? This board has been a disservice. Heffernan Board has been a disservice to our community. I'm asking in the best interest of our community. It's nothing if you're planning if or not. It's a must. So don't procrastinate. Okay, don't think about it. Do what you have to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other public comments?
That's still going on.
Diana Garcia, please. I live in Heber. We're kind of caught in the middle, being in Heber, but one of the things that made me come here was I didn't understand if dissolved meant closing down our Central Regional, right? And I'm pretty active in my community, and I thought, if I don't know that, the public doesn't know that. So I've been looking at, I listened to how much money you guys are spending on this and on that. I know how expensive those things are. But just a little piece, my little piece of the sand of the beach that is here. Make sure that the public knows, right? Like I said, if I'm as active as I am, I like to think of myself as that. I think that when you're dissolving PMH and you're dissolving El Centro Regional, one man thinks that my hospital is going away. You know, and I'm sure that the rest of the public probably thinks that too. So invest a little bit in public awareness. Invest a little bit in making sure that they know who you guys are, what you're here to do, right? You're here to take care of us, to take care of our health care. Don't sell yourselves short. Make sure that you know that. Because if I don't know that, it makes me wonder if you guys know that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll be the first to say, I know we can do a better job of PR for this board, and we will. I mean,
invest in some publicity, some public things. You know, I'm stingy. You know, to me, I come from a school board, and I know that I don't like to spend money on anything that is not necessary. But the best investment that our board did was invest in a PIO.
I will assure you, though, that dissolving either PMH or Heffernan has nothing to do with ECRMC. ECRMC will not be closed. Heffernan, this resolution right here to be dissolved, literally what it does is kick the ball right into LAFCO's court so that they can do their due diligence. So,
yeah, and I understand that now. I'm sitting back there taking my own notes. You know, I did, but like I said, if I didn't get it, I'm not that dumb, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
We have a public comment on Zoom. Ask her to unmute. Oh, there you go. You're unmuted.
Okay. Hi, this is Sylvia Burnell. I'm sorry that I'm not there. I always go to all your meetings. I'm not there because I have COVID, and that's the reason that I'm not there today. Or else I would have been the first one to be there. I just want to make a comment on the day that I asked, when I found out that you wanted to do away with Heffernan in July 1st, and I mentioned to you, and I did say what the attorney said. We haven't even, we're supposed to open our urgent care center in August, and you haven't even, you're not going to give us an opportunity to do that. And then you guys mentioned October the 1st. And I said, okay. It's fine. But my concern is that I want to be dissolved. We want to be dissolved when Pioneer Hospital is dissolved. And why are we thinking like this? Because let's say that we dissolve, Heffernan dissolves and goes in with you. You still have to go and have a special election for the taxes. What if the public does not agree to pay that special tax that Heffernan and Pioneer already paid? What happens to Heffernan, who has already turned in all their assets and all their money? I know that those monies do not come back to us. Am I right or am I wrong? Hello?
Yeah. Do you want to finish giving your public comment so that we can make sure you're on
Yes.
time, and then I can answer your question? I can answer your question.
And the only thing that we are so concerned about right now is that we have spent close $99,000 on attorney fees. And you know, it kind of hurts me to hear these people talking for Calexico and saying that we should be dissolving. That's great. We are going to dissolve because that's been our plan since the first day that this bill came out. What it is that I'm hearing this, and I feel really sad because we're only trying to protect your money. In less than 3 months, you have already spent almost $100,000 on attorney fees. And that worries us. Because I thought the first thing, when I heard people coming on right now, that they were going to say, wow, you've already given them $100,000 on attorney fees, and you're allowing this to happen? And come to behold, I hear the opposite. I don't understand Calexico. I don't understand Calexico. And these people that are talking, they have never been to our meetings. Maybe they've been once or twice, but that Mr. Solano that talked, he has never been to our meetings. So how does he know what's going on in our community? The recall committee, when have they ever gone to our meetings to voice what they're concerned about? And just to leave you with a message, we provided the fire station with ambulance with over $2.5 million for supporting the ambulance when we called it the hospitals and wheels. So don't have them come here and tell you that we haven't done anything for Calexico. The majority of our money has gone to the city of Calexico. That's when LAFCO stopped us from doing that. Because they said we should not be spending money on things that the city of Calexico should be doing. That's why we got stopped. Shame on these people that are talking and saying this, because that's not true what they're saying. More transparency than any agency here. And thank you, and I'm sorry that I'm not there, but I have COVID.
I'm sorry to hear you have COVID, Senora Bernal. To answer your question, the what happens question. So
Yes.
Once Heffernan is dissolved, then, and I have to confer with LAFCO on this, but once Heffernan is dissolved, the property tax that the Heffernan folks pay towards Heffernan District will also go away. And maybe it will be directed to IVHD. That's dependent on LAFCO's property tax transfer, whether they're going to transfer that over, whether they're going to transfer it in the same amount, or they're going to transfer it in a different amount. Whether or not a funding mechanism is approved by the voters in the fall that say, here's a very, very simplified example of what could happen. Let's say Heffernan is taxed at 1% right now. I'm sure that's not the number. This is just for ease.
No.
Let's say Heffernan is taxed at 1%, and let's say the voters approve a 0.25% tax in the fall. That means the Heffernan population will go from paying 1% on their property taxes to 0.25%, and now you're taxed less because the entire county of Imperial is now taxed at 0.25%. So that's something that could happen. So there's no immediate answer. It depends, and it will depend in part on LAFCO, and it will depend in part on what the constituents do in the fall. But certainly there will be no tax on the Heffernan folks if there is no Heffernan district, right? Because then where can that go?
Okay.
So that's just
okay. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad that you are confirming that for me. And one thing that I want to say to the IVHD board, all of you know that I have been there for you. I have done everything within my power, and everything that I do, I have to go back and report to my members. I have to report to them, and they're the ones that make the final decision. But I can tell you that we have been in support of this even before AB 918 came out, when it was barely starting. And at no point are we trying to turn away from you. The only thing is that we want clarity on what's going on, because people are telling us, why you're spending so much money in taxes? Why are you spending so much money on this? Why aren't the other two entities not helping? Those are the questions that we are concerned with. And yes, we need to have a meeting where both of us can come together and discuss all these issues. Thank you.
Do you have any other public comments? Questions or motion?
I would just like to point out at this point that to her point about the amount of money that's been spent, I know it hasn't been brought up, but a good portion of that money is going toward a lawsuit that we are defending ourselves in. That was not brought upon by us, but was we were named in it, and we intend to defend AB 918 because that is what brought this board together to provide better health care for all of Imperial Valley. And so that is one of the things that this funding is going toward. And so unfortunately, we have to spend those dollars to defend it, but that is what we're doing. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
I kind of I understand Heffernan has been paying the legal bills and providing administrative support. And for me, like, I guess it's a short-term loss, long-term gain, right? Because at the end of this, and when those monies are spent, and it's not, it's attorney's bills, but it's also our M&A team behind the scenes. It's the negotiations until Centro is to do the due diligence process. I mean, there's all these moving parts behind the scene. It was, our legal hired the demographer. So there's all these parts to implement AB 918. And I think we all, who follow the bill knew that AB 918 to implement it was going to be expensive. And Heffernan gratefully, willingly volunteered to fund the legal services and provide administrative support. And I'll be the first to say there's no way this board would be able to do it without a funding mechanism. So I'm, for one, am very grateful. And I do think that, everybody in this county should have to pay, not just Heffernan or, to fund it. But that's really not where we're at yet,
Yeah, just 1 second.
What's really important for a lot of people that listen to what happens in Calexico is that Calexico does have a unique situation. We don't have a hospital. And because we don't have a hospital, the fact that our firefighters are salvation in our needs. And so that's why we continuously call them hospital on wheels, because that's exactly what they are. And they're dedicated to our community as a hospital, pretty much. But when you look at that and you see that we do not have a hospital and the circumstances that we're in, throughout the years what happened to us is that LAFCO prohibited that Heffernan provide any financial assistance to our firefighters. Right now, if you pay attention to what's happening in the city of Calexico, we're suffering because fire station number 2, we just can't get it off the ground. And then if you know Calexico, it splits in half when you have all the traffic going on, and so that causes a huge problem for our health and safety. So our unique situation here is, I think, what all of us are worried about, and how our money is never considered for our needs. And so when you tell me that Heffernan was able to graciously give up money to be able to pay for the needs of this board, that's fine. But the city also is suffering right now with a fire station and firefighters that are in grave need of assistance. Thank you.
I just want to point out real quick, though, that the whole point of IVHD was to ensure that we had 2 hospitals, right? Because me personally, right, if El Centro would have closed, or, depending on where you're at, if PMH closed, we have to have 2 hospitals always.
We understand Calexico just is not viable. It's just not possible to have a hospital there for so many different reasons. Yeah. We understand that. What it is that we want you to understand that we have not replacement, but the alternative, which is also very needy at this given moment in time. Thank you.
Was there a motion on the table or not yet?
No.
I'd like to say something. So the makeup of our board is comprised of people that come from different sectors of our own society. And I think that's what brings value to this board. At the onset of our meetings, we talked about having as much transparency as possible. It is rather uncomfortable sitting here being sued by one of the entities, but guess what? We put our pants on and let's get it done. It's okay. We're going to move forward. The guarantee that we made at the very beginning was that we see ourselves as public servants, not just for one individual community. With respect to me, El Centro, it's the entire county. And that's the way we look at things. So with the monies that are coming in for Heffernan, I feel the same way. It's great that that money is even there. And whether that money would have come from Hopeville or Brawley, whomever, we're still going to do business as usual. We're not, the lawsuits aren't going to scare us. We're going to move forward because defending the lawsuit is not defending us, it's defending all of you. And so we know the big picture is we need to get to where we're going to get, and we're going to fulfill those mandates. And you can take that to the bank. We're going to fulfill those mandates. We're doing our due diligence. We're making sure that we're checking all the boxes so that we don't have the public saying, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. Well, guess what? The mandates are written and they're very specific. And we're going to fulfill them. And so as far as Calexico, I come from public service entity in my previous life, and I see how it is something that I would be worried about as far as family members not getting the help that they need, because not only is it so far away, but the traffic issue is horrendous. And I feel, and they call firefighters America's heroes, because they sometimes do things for nothing, and they're out there helping everybody. And here we come. Here comes the heat strokes, right? So if I could have a magic wand, I would dissolve Heffernan yesterday. But not because of the money, because we now are in the position to make all the right decisions for all of us, every one of us, because we all deserve great health care. And sometimes you read the paper and it's like one side or the other, but I like the comments when I read about how we need to think of the patients, the quality of care. And just recently, personally, I had a couple of family members that fell elderly, and they went to El Centro Regional. And the question I asked them was, how's the quality of care? And they said, I don't know what's going on in El Centro Regional, but it was awesome. Not only were they attentive to me, and one of my relatives happens to live in Mexico, but it seemed like every question got answered, and they were very kind. And I thought, wow, that's pretty good to hear, right? And so I just want you to take away that we think of everybody in this community. Everyone is important. And so that's our focus. Let winter come. It's okay. We're going to take care of it. That's all I have.
I'd like to make a comment. I voiced my opposition to Resolution 2024-03, not only because of the wording, I'm not going to go into that, but because there is no funding mechanism in place yet for IVHD. And Heffernan Memorial can be the funding mechanism for this board. I mean, we've already, like Mr. Hernan said, we spent over a lot of money on legal fees. Also, we don't know what's going to happen with the lawsuit with Pioneers. There's a lot more money that's going to be spent there. And Calexico, just to inform the gentleman that said the bill 918 says that the Heffernan will provide for everything. It's not true. On a summary on reimbursable monies, on item 4 it says it is unclear what entity will cover other costs associated with establishing the new district, including costs to establish 7 voting districts, costs to coordinate with LAFCO, and costs to reimburse county election officials for the elections for new permanent board members and a permanent funding source mechanism. So this to me says that Heffernan is not buying to pay for everything. And for the misinformation that the people here from Calexico has come and spewed, I say that they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't been to our board meetings. They haven't even talked to the people in Calexico. They're only a small group. So with that, that's what I'm saying. That's my opposition to recommendation of 3.
Any other comments? Can you clarify Heffernan's role in aiding
Sure.
or
Sure. I'm reading from the statute. For the purposes of this bill 8918, so until both the Healthcare Memorial Healthcare District and Pioneers are dissolved, the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District shall hold a temporary clerical role. For the purposes of this division, the clerical responsibility shall be limited to providing administrative employees or the financial means to hire administrative employees, providing financial resources to complete clerical tasks for board meetings and public meetings. These tasks include creating agendas for public meetings and board meetings, setting meeting location, dates, and times, ensuring that the transfer of existing healthcare districts into IVHD with minimal interruption to ongoing healthcare services, provide a venue for the board meetings and public meetings to take place, or providing the financial means for a venue, providing the financial means to hire legal counsel. So that's the obligations according to the statute.
Do you have a motion or any action by this board?
I'll make the motion to pass resolution 2024-03, resolution of the Board of Directors in the Imperial Valley Healthcare District determining pursuant to Health and Safety Code 32499.6 as amended by the California Assembly Bill 918/2023 to recommend a date on which Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District will be dissolved, with the understanding that each of the people who have voiced either opposition or support for this date have the opportunity to go to LAFCO and support their decision or voice their decision or their opinion on what the decision should be to LAFCO, and they still have a voice there. And this understanding that this is just a recommendation of this board. And so I will make the motion to push this resolution through.
Do you want to scratch out the third paragraph?
The third whereas?
Just asking.
No.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Medard and a second by Garcia. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Director Bergwijn?
Yes.
Director Goodsow?
Yes.
Director Menard?
Yes.
Director Proctor?
Yes.
Director Berger?
Yes.
Director Valdez?
No.
Director Garcia?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1. Now we'll move on to. Item D, resolution number 2024-04, resolution of the Board of Directors of Imperial Valley Healthcare District determining pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6 as added by California Assembly Bill 918, the recommended date on which Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District will be dissolved.
Madam Chair, the determination of the ad hoc committee was to recommend to the full board a dissolution date of December 1. I've already talked about why the date is different than the Heffernan date, and one of the reasons that December 1 was chosen is because it's, we believe, far enough out to hopefully resolve the litigation and try in good faith to discuss the dissolution and absorption of the Pioneers Hospital with the Pioneers folks in the sincere hope that we can get them to come to the table and disclose both financial information and all of the information that will be necessary to transfer that hospital over. That's the reason December 1 was chosen. The board is obligated to pick a date between July 1 and January 21. And like the Heffernan resolution, this is a mere recommendation to LAFCO. At the end of the day, upon receiving notice, LAFCO is the organization that is going to have to choose the ultimate date, which can be this date or it can be a different date.
Any questions, comments by the board, or any public comments?
I just like to say too that we all live in Imperial County, and a lot of boards, a lot of business entities, they go dark in August or July because of vacations for their kids and things like that, right? So although it may be December 1st, you actually lose out almost in a month of August or July for the most part here in our valley. And just keep that stuff in mind. So we have 1 month less when people go dark. And I don't know if LAFCO goes dark during those periods of month, but you know, think about that. That's all.
Do you have any other questions, comments? Motion.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 2024-04, resolution of the Board of Directors of the Imperial Valley Healthcare District determining pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6 as amended by California Assembly Bill 918/2023, the recommended date in which Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District be resolved, with the same understanding that anyone who has support or opposition of that and has the opportunity to go to LAFCO, then this is just a recommendation.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Medart and a second by Garcia. Madam Clerk, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Director Bernworth,
Yes.
Director Goodsow,
Yes.
Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Proctor,
Yes.
Director Berger,
No.
Director Valdez,
Yes.
Director Garcia.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1. Now we can move on to item 16, items for future agenda. Do we have any items?
My only item, or my only request, is actually not a future agenda item. It's a future date for a special board meeting. I would like to put the public and this board on notice that we are likely to ask this board to meet again at some point in the next 2 weeks, both to discuss the Pioneers litigation and to ask this board to approve the minutes for today, so that we can have authorized minutes approving the actions that the board took today before July 1, which is one of our required dates under AB 918, so that we can have those approved and in the record as taking the actions required by AB 918 ahead of the deadline.
All right. Do we have any other items? Any comments, questions from the board before we adjourn? Oh, do we have to pick a date?
You can now if you'd like. I can contact you offline, but we can also plan for that special meeting now. I know one of the dates that was thrown out was next Friday, June 21st.
That works for me.
Or we can come play 5:30 start time, 6 p.m. start time. What works best for the board?
6 p.m.
Okay.
That works for me as well.
Okay, special board meeting. Perfect.
What was the date?
Friday, June 21st. So we'll do our best. I'll work with the clerk to have the minutes drafted up so that they can be ready for agenda and publication ahead of the 24-hour posting deadline.
I think we have one public comment.
And I just want to remind everyone and the board that we have a special meeting happening right after this. It's going to be very fast. It's just the last public hearing and approval of the ordinance.
Good evening. My name is Catalina Cantos-Santia, and I'm a Raleigh resident. And all I want to ask from you is please be transparent. Just like I believe it was Ms. Reese, is, put all this information in the newspaper, talk about it. I remember that when El Centro was in the media all last year, just every month or more. And they were telling their side it'd be very nice if you do the same thing, because a lot of people are still confused about this whole thing. And we want the presence, when they asked us, we let them know, we also need to do that, and we're going to start that. So they can hear both sides of the story. And one of the things that's what we try to avoid was this expense, because some of you are very new. We try to avoid this expense by having this bill be expanding Pioneers. You wouldn't have that much of an expense right now with that. If you would have taken our name and expanded it all over the valley with our contracts and everything else, it was a send-and deal. But it didn't happen. So now you're going through this expense. We are trying to work with you, and we have a lawsuit for a good reason. So you do what you need to do, and we're going to do what we need to do. But please be transparent. All of your meetings and everything, put them on the newspaper. I know it's going to cost you so many, but still, you want the whole valley to know exactly what's going on, not just one side. Okay? So that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
So now we'll move on to our special meeting. The adoption of the ordinance.
Thank you for permitting me to speak for you as a board. The reason I'm coming up here again because my name was mentioned by the previous commentator. If the board wishes, for us to bring more community members from Calexico to bring up our concerns, because it's stated that we don't know what we're talking about. Okay? You can hear it from other members. If that's your wishes, just let us know. We'll bring you in more people. Thank you.
So with that, my pictures are all.
So we're on the special meeting agenda. We've been called to order. There's a determination of quorum. Is there any other public comment on the special board meeting agenda, which is limited to items on the agenda only, which is the public hearing regarding the proposed ordinance establishing district-based elections, and then consideration and action to approve the ordinance establishing the voting districts. Any public comment?
Do you have a motion?
Oh, so we have to open the public hearing.
Oh, I'll open the public hearing at 8:43.
Thank you for opening the public comment, Maria Hurtado, businesswoman in downtown Calexico. The words that we just heard from the board member that we feel has a conflict on your board is that we don't come here to spew. That is very unfair to be referred to that way. That is the problem in Calexico. We have the right to come here and speak and not be intimidated by your opinion that we come here to spew. That's wrong. We're here as the public with every right to come and tell you what we feel. It's time now, okay? So we would really appreciate your professionalism. Please, stop saying we come here to spew.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comments on? If not,
Keep the hearing open, but now the item is consideration and possible action to approve ordinance number 2024-01. Ordinance of the Board of Directors of Imperial Valley Health Care District establishing voting districts pursuant to Health and Safety Code 32499 as added by 8918 and Elections Code 10010. Again, this ordinance is identical, except it uses the word ordinance instead of resolution, except for Section 7, second sentence, which says this ordinance shall control over any or all other resolutions or actions of the board establishing voting districts for IVHD. This one also adopts map 3B as the board's map for elections. So the item before the board is whether or not to move for approval of the ordinance of the board. Ordinance 2024-01.
Well, I don't have that verbiage in front of me. I'm not sure where.
You can move staff recommendation if you want, or you can just, and then we'll reflect it.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the resolution, the ordinance of resolution 2024-01 to incorporate the map, the green map.
Green B, got it.
do you have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion by Garcia and a second by Proctor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none.
Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. Ordinances have to be approved by roll call.
Okay. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Director Burnworth,
Yes.
Director Goodstuff,
Yes.
Director Bedard,
Yes.
Director Proctor,
Yes.
Director Burker,
Yes.
Director Valdez,
Yes.
Director Garcia.
Yes.
With that, I will close the public hearing at 8:46. With that, I will also adjourn this meeting at 8:46. Thank you.